FastHTML is a new web framework. Django is established. Which one gives better performance when implementing a simple HTML-based multi-page application? How do I compare these two frameworks without getting too much interference into the measurements? I want to look at data flows, CPU loads, and delay. Is FastHTML the fastest? We can crown the fastest Python-based web framework of them all. How do we compare two web applications? We can set up two application streams, from database to application, browser, Selenium browser controller, and a repeatable unit test suite. But if we're using different components in these streams, how do we know that the results belong to the applications themselves? So how do we eliminate the database dependency? We use one database. I use MongoDB for this one, and to that one I have two parallel tables or collections, if you may, one for Django and one for FastHTML. This way we get the same database delay for both applications. Want to go deeper into FastHTML with me? Then subscribe, so you won't miss the next deep dive into FastHTML that I'm about to do. So how do we eliminate the client part? We use the same test suites, the same Selenium WebDriver against the same client, Chrome. Now the only thing that differs between these two streams are now the applications themselves. Then, how do we measure data flows? I choose to use a tool called Netstat from Linux. It can give a snapshot of an interface. In this case, we use localhost port 8000 and localhost port 5001. And for each of these, we take one snapshot before we run the test suite and one directly after. And then we just look at the difference between the two of them. Now, what are my expectations for this measurement? We are using simple HTML here. I expect these ones to be exactly the same. So on to the measurements. Here we have a table with FastHTML and Django. And the conclusion is the differences are very small. They are the same. Now, how do we measure CPU load? I use the Linux tool System Manager. That one can plot each core against time. In that plot, we can see any kind of peak load as well as the accumulated load under each curve for each processor or core. And we can see the general load as the volume under each curve in this drawing. This measurement should be good enough, I guess. What about my expectation for this one? Well, Django is a larger framework, so it should really draw a bit more CPU from this one. Then what about the measurements? Django has a peak of 58%, while FastHTML has got a peak of 65%. The area under the plots are roughly the same size. We can also look at the time it takes to run the actual test suites. For Django, this takes 6.6 seconds, and for FastHTML, it takes 6.6 seconds. So, my conclusion for this. With these tools, we see no significant difference between the two frameworks. They are the same. Now, how do we measure server delay? For the server delays, I use a Google tool called Firehouse. It provides a measure per page. My expectation for this one? FastHTML should be the fastest, right? So, looking into the reports, we see that Django is faster than FastHTML. Disappointed. So, my conclusion is that it seems we need to give this victory to Django, I'm afraid. So, is there a lesson here in this disappointment? Is there any way that we can speed up FastHTML to reach the same levels as Django? Actually, it is. Digging a bit deeper into the Firehouse reports on FastHTML, they give a tip that libraries should be served as static files directly from the server, instead of being fetched from the internet. If we do that, we can cut off about a second. And if we look at the difference, second is what we need. So doing this would actually put FastHTML on the exact same level as Django. This brings the delay measure to a tie. But here is an important lesson for using FastHTML. If you want speed, you should serve your libraries as static files. So, my final conclusions. For simple HTML-like web applications, Django and FastHTML have about the same performance. There is no fastest to be crowned. Simply choose the one you like and the one you know. About the future. To not miss out on any FastHTML content, do subscribe. Next up, I will do an HTMX-based single-page application of this application, and I will do it using FastHTML. And when the next evaluation is finished, it will show up here. So click it, and I'll see you in there.